wonder where he is this time. It looks like he's in the southeast, in Florida. Dear Alicia, the sun has been shining ever since I got to Florida. I've walked for miles and miles on the wide beaches, flying kites and picking up cool seashells. The snorkeling is great. The water's warm and you can see incredible sunken shipwrecks and schools of fish with amazing colors.
Not only is there some great snorkeling, but you can also water ski, sail, fish, and body surf. There's water everywhere in the state of Florida.
Florida is located on a peninsula. A peninsula is an area of land that is almost entirely surrounded by water. The Atlantic Ocean is on its eastern border, and the Gulf of Mexico is on its western border. To the south, the Straits of Florida is the passage that connects the two bigger bodies of water. The state of Florida is located in the southeast region of the United States. Alabama and Georgia border Florida to the north.
The northwestern part of Florida is called the Panhandle because it's shaped a little like the handle of a frying pan.
Florida is largely made up of areas of flat land, called plains. The Atlantic coastal plain lies along the eastern side of Florida. The Gulf coastal plain covers much of the western part of Florida. The highest land in the state is found in north-central Florida, and it's called the Florida.
Alicia, I'm writing this to you from the oldest continually lived-in city in the United States, St. Augustine. I visited the Spanish Quarter and I saw the oldest stone fort in the U.S., Castillo de San Marco. The Spanish built some things to last para siempre, you know, forever. I wonder if they were the first people to live here.
Let's see. Long before the Spanish arrived, several groups of Native Americans, such as the Seminole and the Calusa, lived in Florida. They fished and hunted, and they also farmed, especially corn. Have you noticed the interesting names of some of the cities as you've been traveling through Florida?
Several of Florida's city names come from Native American words. For example, the capital city's name, Tallahassee, comes from a Muskogee word meaning old town.
Hoping to discover gold, the Spanish were the first Europeans to arrive in Florida. Explorers led by Juan Ponce de Leon landed on the Atlantic coast in 1513. Ponce de Leon is credited with giving the state its name, La Florida.
Hey, La Florida! That's like saying full of flowers.
From the earliest European presence in Florida, a long game of tug-of-war began among the countries that wanted to claim it for their own. Though the Spanish were the first to arrive in Florida, the French also built a fort there soon after. Eventually, the Spanish drove out the French. 200 years later, the British took control of Florida and ruled for about 20 years, until the end of the American Revolutionary War. At that time, control of the land went back to Spain, but Spain only governed for less than 40 years. Finally, the U.S. bought the land from Spain. In 1845, Florida became the 27th state. In 1861, Florida seceded from the U.S. and joined the Confederate States of America with other southern states. When the American Civil War ended in 1865, Florida was back in the United States.
Whoa, that's a long game of tug-of-war.
And just think, it all started as a search for gold.
The early Spanish settlers never did find gold in Florida, but eventually people found other ways to make money. The economy is the system of how people make, spend, or save money. Florida's economy has several industries. An industry is a group of businesses that provide a type of service or make a certain kind of product. One of Florida's biggest industries is fishing. Fish that comes from the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico is sold around the U.S. The fishing industry involves not only fishermen, but also markets and restaurants where the fish is sold. Because of Florida's warm climate, agriculture is another important part of the economy. agriculture includes all the businesses of growing crops and raising animals.
How do you like my new hat? I bet you never would have guessed that there would be cattle ranching in Florida. The ranchers told me that they even hold rodeos here.
Wow, you're right. Raising beef cattle is a big business in Central Florida, where the grassland is good for feeding herds. But you got herded in the wrong direction if you're looking for the biggest part of Florida's agriculture. I'll give you one hint. It's orange.
Orange juice is a breakfast favorite. You can buy it in a jug, in a carton, or you can even squeeze your own. Did you ever stop to think where orange juice comes from? Oranges, of course, and the majority of oranges grown in the U.S. are from Florida. Oranges grow on trees, and groups of orange trees are called groves. Orange trees begin producing fruit when they are about 3 years old. First, the orange tree blossoms. The beautiful orange blossom is Florida's state flower. From the blossom grows the fruit. An orange starts out green and slowly turns color as it ripens. From blossom to ripe fruit takes about 6 months. But if the weather changes and temperatures drop below freezing any time in that period, the fruit could be damaged. Citrus groves are a common sight in Central Florida. Why are they there? The climate and location are just right for citrus trees. There are lots of sunny days, and there's plenty of available water. Oranges have to ripen on the tree. When they are ripe, usually in the fall and winter months, crews of workers pick them off the trees by hand. The fruit is then sorted at a processing center and sent to various places to be squeezed into juice. Orange juice travels in big, insulated trucks to companies that package the juice and distribute it all over the U.S. So, next time you have a glass of orange juice, look on the box. It's very likely that it was made from oranges grown in... Besides the citrus fruit industry, Florida has a mining industry, which mainly produces phosphate. Phosphate is a mineral used in the production of fertilizer. Fertilizers are materials that are added to soil to help plants grow, so phosphate is an important product for farms all over the country. Florida phosphate is primarily shipped from Tampa on the Gulf Coast. The manufacturing industry in Florida produces things such as scientific equipment, computers, and aircraft parts. Things that are manufactured are called products. Products can be replaced. When you use a product, you can make or...
I tell you, a traveler with a good map can get just about anywhere. I have now gone as far south in Florida as I could possibly go, and now I'm in the most southern city in the U.S., except of course those in Hawaii. It's a tiny island called Key West. I've heard you can walk from one side to the other in about an hour. I've been watching fishing boats coming in with the most amazing fish.
Key West is the southernmost of a string of islands called the Florida Keys. To get to the Keys, you can drive from southern Florida across several bridges, or you can take a boat or a small plane.
There are more than 800 Florida keys. The name Key comes from a Spanish word, cayo, which means little island.
The Florida Keys were formed by coral reefs. The reefs provide a home for all kinds of fish and other animals. Reefs are beautiful, but very delicate, so divers have to be careful not to touch or damage the reefs.
So, Alicia, do you know what the #1 industry is for Florida? Give up? I'll give you a hint. By visiting the state, I am a part of it.
Okay, so it's not cattle, or citrus fruit, or fishing. Oh, I get it. You're a tourist. It must be the tourism industry.
Tourists who come to Florida do things like snorkel and dive, exploring the coral reefs and shipwrecks. They also come to enjoy the culture and food, or learn about the state's history. When people visit a place to see what it looks like and enjoy its unique features, they're called tourists. While they are visiting, they eat in restaurants, go shopping, and stay in hotels. The money that tourists spend is very important to Florida's economy. Tourists can choose from many interesting places to visit in Florida. Located in the Panhandle, Tallahassee is Florida's capital. A state capital is a city where the main offices of a state's government are located. The state's lawmakers meet in Tallahassee, and that's also where the governor lives. You can see historic mansions around the city or visit the Lake Jackson Mound, evidence of Native Americans living here more than 1,000 years ago. The biggest city in terms of size and number of people is Jacksonville. It's located in northern Florida on the Atlantic coast at the mouth of the St. Johns River. Many people in Jacksonville work at the Mayport Naval Station or for one of the universities there. Orlando, in central Florida, is a very popular tourist destination. That's where Walt Disney World is located, as well as many other attractions. Another popular destination is the Miami area on the Atlantic coast. Miami is an urban area. That's what a city area is called. Outside of Miami city limits are suburban areas like Hialeah, Coral Gables, and Sweetwater. Suburban areas are communities on the edge of a city. Many people live in the suburbs, even though they might work in the city. Together, Miami and its suburbs are considered a metropolitan area. A metropolitan area consists of both an urban area and its surrounding suburban areas. Tampa and St. Petersburg are located on the Gulf Coast. Because of their location, they are important shipping centers. You can visit wildlife parks there and several art museums.
Strangely, sunny and warm St. Petersburg is named after one of the coldest cities in the world, St. Petersburg, Russia.
Alicia, you just have to learn how to water ski. It's a blast. There are thousands of lakes here in Florida, but I'm going skiing on the largest lake of them all, Lake Okeechobee. Big sections of Florida have been set aside as parks for people like me to enjoy.
The natural features of Florida are a big draw for many people. They come to dive underwater at John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. They visit Crystal River on the west coast in the hopes of seeing the shy manatee. And they go into caves like the ones in Florida Caverns State Park in Mariana. In the Panhandle, people can walk in the shady longleaf pine forests. Along the coasts, sunbathers and swimmers enjoy Barrier Island beaches. Barrier Islands are low, sandy islands that are close to the coast. And birdwatchers love Florida's many wetlands. A wetland is a broad land area covered much of the time by shallow standing water.
Guess what? Now I'm right in the middle of the largest wetland in the U.S., the Everglades. There's another one for my list of the biggest, oldest, and tallest. The Everglades, it's huge. To really explore it, you should get in a special fan boat.
Did you know that the Everglades is the only place in the world where crocodiles and alligators both live? There are many more alligators in Florida, though, so it's the state's official reptile. A state reptile! Can you believe that?
The Everglades is home to many plants and animals that are really rare, such as the Atlantic leatherback turtle and the Florida panther. There are millions of acres of wetlands like the Everglades in Florida. As more and more people moved to Florida, many wetlands were drained and filled, and people built houses, businesses, and vacation resorts. Throughout the 20th century, Florida's population grew very rapidly. Besides all of the tourists who come to Florida, many Americans move to Florida when they retire from working. Other people coming to live in Florida are immigrants. Immigrants are people who leave one country to make their home in another country. South Florida is home to many immigrants from Latin American and Caribbean countries. Since the 1950s,